Hi, I'm Dr. Rebecca Mindock. I teach double reads at the University of South Alabama, and today I'm going to give you some advice and tips, a mini lesson, if you will, on the middle school lyrical oboe etude for this year's Alabama All-State auditions. Our etude for this year, it's in your Rubank book, but it actually comes from a set called the Barrett Oboe Method. This is the first of the 40 progressive melodies that are in that book. And Mr. Barrett wrote that book a long time ago. It's from the 1800s, and we still use it today because it's that great. He was really good at knowing what's kind of tricky to do on the oboe and to give us beautiful melodies that help us work out those issues. So one of the things that he does in this etude that's hard is slurs over difficult intervals. So the very first thing you have in that first measure is a slur from the G to the F to the A to the D, right? So that A is really tempting to tongue. Resist the urge to do it, right? So if you tongue it, it'll always come out in the right place. If you slur it, what could happen? It might crack, it might overshoot if you drop your jaw too much. All kinds of terrible things could happen. Blah. But keep your air steady. Think about how much to adjust your embouchure. Make sure your octave key comes off from the F. And blow through and check it with the tuner. And then the next note is that half hole D, so make sure you roll off your half hole. And then when you go to the C after it, you do finally get to tongue, but you want to make sure you get your half hole closed again. Right? So lots of little things to watch out for. The next thing I want to draw your attention to are these 16th note pickups that happen in several places. Make sure you don't play those like eighth notes. Subdivide your 16th notes, 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1. Make sure they're snappy and at the very end of the measure. And the last one of those kicks off another difficult slur. So here you have octave key E, then half hole D, so make sure you get off your thumb and open your half hole, up to second octave key B, this one up here, right? And then A is easy because it's just add a finger to your B. And then you have to play the G after the slur is over, but make sure you get off of your second octave key. And you want to have your first octave key on. I go ahead and put my first octave key on when I go to the high B because oboe cancels that out. So if you look at what opens when I press my first octave key, this little guy opens. And then when I hit my second octave key, it automatically closes. So I always finger those second octave key notes with my thumb on anyway, so that when I let go of it, it's waiting and I don't have to try to scramble with my thumb. Okay? So if you accidentally leave your second octave key on, you don't want that. Okay? Next thing I want to draw your attention to is another difficult slur. So the next melody that happens after the repeat sign that you don't have to take has a slur up from an E to a high A, and then you have it again from a half hole D to a G. A lot of students like to tongue that next eighth note, and then they have a tendency to slur the notes after it, which is not what's written, right? So make sure you blow through, use the crescendo that's written, connect up to that high note, and then let the notes fall with a gentle articulation. Now let's talk about this, what I just got to. I have a half hole D, and on the next line I have an F. How should we finger that F? So not all oboes look the same. If your oboe has all the same keys I do, there's a beautiful alternate fingering that you're going to use here that you may or may not already know about. If you don't know about it, today is going to be the day you meet it, and it should become your new best friend. If you don't have all the keys I have, if you don't have anything on your bell, if it's just a hole and there's nothing there, then your oboe does not have this alternate F fingering, and you are going to have to use a forked F there. So you play your half hole D, you add your octave key and close your half hole and pick up that middle finger. If your oboe doesn't have any of that stuff, it probably also doesn't have a resonance key, so you need to finger your forked F with your pinky. If you have a nice oboe like mine and you ever do use a forked F, don't use your pinky because there's an extra key down here that opens, and if you use your pinky, it'll make everything sharp. Pro tip. Anyway, so if you don't have all the extra keys, forked F, which means then you have to try to get to E natural cleanly, so that's a little hard, okay? If you have all the keys I have, there's the perfect solution for you. It's called your left F. So the best way to finger an F whenever you can do it is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and this little dude right here, okay? A little banana key, the F key, whatever you want to call it. You can't get to that when you've got a D right in front of it, right? No, that's not going to work cleanly. But the cool thing is that this key that's been Frankensteined onto the key cluster over here, opens the same thing. See how it moves it right there? So you can get that key with this finger. So you can go half hold E, F, and then look at that. E is right there. All you have to do is pick up your pinky. Beautiful. So nice. Okay. Next set of melodies here. Watch out that you've got an eighth note pickup here, but a quarter here. Okay. Right? Don't try to play those the same. You don't really have time to breathe in between this D and this G. However, here's the thing. Where I stopped, it would be fine if the phrase ended right there, but it slurs into an F sharp and an F, and it goes like this, right? Ooh, so where do you breathe? Because that all connects together, right? So the answer is you can't breathe in there. You have to make sure those phrases connect together. It's called an elision. The phrase elides into the next one. So take a really good breath back here at that last eighth rest you have. If you really can't make it, if you've been practicing and you just can't get through the rest of it, you could take a little sneak breath right in that spot that I mentioned. Just make sure you don't turn that into an eighth note pickup, okay? But then you got to keep going. If you're dying, you could probably cheat and take one here after the B, but really the next best spot you've got is that dotted eighth rest at the end. So that's a long way to get through. My best advice for getting that far is to make sure that when you start, you are in the best place you can be with your air. If you haven't noticed this yet, the oboe doesn't actually use that much air because we're blowing it all into this tiny thing that has a lot of back pressure in it. So you take a good breath in and then you play, and you're not actually going to use up everything that's in your lungs. Most of that air is going to stay in there. It's going to create some pressure, and only a little bit's going to get out. So what often happens is we stop to breathe because our body needs more oxygen, but we haven't actually emptied out our lungs yet. And so then when we take a breath in, we don't have a lot of space in our lungs to take in more air. And so we don't get a lot of good air in. Plus then all that old toxic carbon dioxide, nitrogen, whatever's in there is still in there, like poisoning your body a little bit. And so you start feeling really bad. And I don't know if you've had the experience where you go to breathe and you try to breathe and you feel like you're choking because there's nowhere for it to go. If you've been playing the oboe for any amount of time, I'm sure you've had that experience. It's oboe life. Hashtag oboe life. So my advice is to make sure that every time you stop to breathe and you have time to do it, that you exhale first. We call this an exchange of air. It's something you want to work on doing fast. Out and in, out and in. So when you start this second phrase here, you've got a quarter rest and then you have that eighth rest. Make sure that you do some good outs and ins in those spots so that when you start here, you have a wonderfully fresh tank of air that you can live on and not feel like you're going to die, and maybe you'll make it all the way to the end of that phrase. Cool? Okay, in that phrase, we also have this scary looking thing, all these 30-second notes. Don't be freaked out by that. In the original Barrett, it's an ornament. It's something called a turn. It looks like a little squiggle. So basically, you have a note. It's an F. You go up a note in the key signature, back to the note, down a note in the key signature, and back to the note. F, G, F, E, F. So it's kind of like a trill. Trills aren't scary, right? So neither should this be scary. This just tells you exactly how it works rhythmically, which is nice because it all happens on the end of the beat. So another tip I have there, if you don't want to try to coordinate all your fingers on this hand when you go F to G, the trill fingering from F to G is just this. So in that turn, you can go F, G, F, E, F instead of picking them all up. You don't have to do it. If you're more comfortable doing what you're used to and you can keep your fingers together cleanly, do it. Don't change your life. But if you have a hard time making this clean and it's just kind of scary to let go of all those fingers and easier for you to just go, then do it, okay? Last thing to point out here with fun note stuff, you have another 16th note pickup that sounds kind of like the stuff in the beginning, only this time it goes to a high C. Everyone's favorite note on the oboe, right? It's also marked forte. Students often shy away from that because they're afraid of that note sounding gross, right? And they're afraid of it going sharp when you put too much air into it. This problem has the same solution. So what you're going to do is open up your mouth, put as much space inside your mouth as you can, drop your jaw a little bit, get your teeth separated, still maintain a good seal on your reed and make sure the reed's not too open because it's a high note. But that's all going to be here with your lips, making sure you're thinking about all these lip muscles being nice and focused on the reed. So inside your mouth, nice and open, and then fill up that space with air, with good forte air. So if you don't do all that, if you keep it all closed and pinched and try to blow really hard, you get that. If you open up, oh, that's so much nicer, okay? So think about that. Take a chance on it. Open up, experiment with it till you find exactly the right intonation, and you can get that beautiful forte high C that you need to have to play this well. Okay, if you have other questions, concerns, problems, want to have a longer mini lesson with me about any of this, feel free to send me an email, and I'd be happy to talk some more with you. In the meantime, happy practicing and good luck.